Hello and welcome to Tuesday night's calendar, live from the National Coal Mining Museum here in Wakefield, as we mark some 40 years since the start of arguably the longest and most bitter industrial dispute this country has ever witnessed.
Yes, behind us stands the pit wheel of what was once Cap House Colliery, on a site where men had toiled to bring coal to the surface for more than 200 years.
Skylines like this were once common across this part of the region. Today, it stands dormant, a relic from the past, like the rest of the mining industry, consigned to the history books.
On tonight's programme, we'll look back on the year-long battle for British mining's future and the defeat which ultimately spelled its demise.
We had no option but to stand and
They
fight.
threw down the gauntlet and we picked it up. It was either a case of fight or die. We had no option and we took them on.
We'll look at the legacy it left behind for former pit communities like Grimethorpe and hear from the man who ordered those closures.
I would describe it in the context of the battle to bring union militancy under the rule of law. We had to deal with it and we had to bring the unions within the law of the land.
Hello, thank you for joining us. Let's start with that very first walkout exactly 40 years ago today. It came after the National Coal Board announced plans to close 20 pits, among them Cortonwood Colliery, around 20 miles south of here. Now, miners there downed tools, and in the days that followed, the strike spread rapidly through coalfields throughout the region.
Yes, it escalated into a bloody year-long battle between Arthur Scargill's National Union of Mine Workers and Margaret Thatcher's Conservative government. Lisa Adlam looks back at that battle and how it transformed the industrial landscape, not just of the region, but of our nation.
It's an outlook which today gives little or no clue of the heritage and tradition which once fuelled this part of South Yorkshire and countless communities beyond. Cortonwood Colliery stood here from the 19th century, and it was here in 1984 that the most bitter and divisive industrial action in British history began. For those at its heart, the impact of the miners' strike still echoes through the 40 years that have passed.
We had to fight it. We couldn't just roll over and play dead and let them do what they like. But they said, oh, we want 900 men. We need to reduce the manpower by 900 in the area. We'll shut Cortonwood. It's finished in 5 weeks. So, red rag to a bull.
A red rag to tens of thousands of miners, and in Yorkshire, they rallied to the cause.
We'll be implementing the 81 ballot result, and our members in Yorkshire will be on strike.
We had no option but to stand and
They
fight.
threw down the gauntlet and we picked it up. It was either a case of fight or die. We had no option and we took them on.
Battle lines and picket lines were drawn. On one side, Arthur Scargill and the National Union of Mine Workers. On the other, Margaret Thatcher, leader of a Conservative government many like Ken, John, Kevin and Mick believe had long been intent on breaking their union and their way of life.
There was only ever one union they were coming for, and that were us. And she wanted Arthur's head on a post. Make no bones about it, they set the stall out to ambush the miners. And that's what happened from 1984 onwards.
Throughout 1984, Graham Yeats, who was an underground fitter at Cortonwood, led teams of men to picket at collieries and power plants across the region.
And the orders are arrive at 6:30 a.m, not before.
Will the police know we're coming now? Will they know where we're headed?
1,000 to 1, yes.
Calendar's cameras were with him then as standoffs with police became more frequent and hostility towards those who crossed picket lines grew. And for some, time has not healed the wound.
What were your feelings then and what are they now? Are they any different to those miners who kept working?
No, a scab's a scab and it don't wash off, it's for life. And they betrayed us. Anybody who can cross a picket line, I think, is the lowest form of human life.
Division and distrust built and erupted in violence on one of the dispute's darkest days. June the 18th, when miners trying to prevent lorries entering and leaving the Orgreave coking plant clashed with officers in brutal scenes that marked a turning point in policing the protests.
As we came over the hill, we could see in a field in the distance 3,000-4,000 of these police marching up and down. I thought, this is it, we're going to get slaughtered. But we had to turn up like.
I think that anybody that's been here today has seen police tactics of a most brutal nature.
Get in here and see what they're doing.
I must tell you that what we've got is an attempt to substitute the rule of the mob for the rule of law.
How many days did you do here at Orgreave?
From day one.
From day one, every day.
Yeah.
Across the divide stood two local men, one policing, one documenting the conflict tearing their communities apart. Rick Pickard was a calendar cameraman who bore witness to many of the strike's pivotal moments, filming from behind lines held by officers like Bill Thomas, who lived and worked just a few miles up the road in Swinton.
Certainly, about being an hour there, we had a lot of grass sods being thrown over. So as you're lined up like that, as the grass sods come in, you can't do much. All you can do like is duck your head, I suppose, because the sods contain all and anything, and a lot of them did. Right, and it wasn't pleasant to them, I'll tell you. But that's how it goes.
Which side were right, which side were wrong, I don't know. To this day I don't know. My grandchildren ask me about it. They look at some of the pictures, they see it on telly, who was right and who was wrong, and I do not know the answer.
When you're looking back this far and saying, what did it do for you? I don't know, because I've never been a miner. But I didn't think what they did was wrong at the time, because you have to be able to work in a place that you feel comfortable working.
I think we did a fabulous job, and I think every one of us and everybody that's watching this programme in Yorkshire should be proud of the fact that the miners took them on and fought.
It was a fight that ultimately couldn't save an industry and left this landscape forever changed. After 40 years, the arguments go on. Some may be reconciled, many will never forgive. Few will ever forget. Lisa Adlam, ITV News.
Some absolutely incredible pictures from the archives there, and some amazing memories from people who were involved with the miners' strike at the time. And of course, history is what it's all about. And here at the National Coal Mining Museum in Wakefield, history surrounds us all. And in fact, where I am now, if the camera just pans round, you'll find I'm in this corner of the room where we have a tribute to the role women played during the miners' strike. And I've got a real-life, living exhibit with me here, Aggie Curry. Aggie, I hope you don't mind me calling you that, because you really are, aren't you? And you look at that, what you're wearing there. That's amazing.
This is my pride and joy.
Does this take you back, as soon as you put that on, does that take you back 40 years?
Yeah, only the trouble is now I couldn't run with it like I could then, you know. Yeah, it sets me back.
And you did run with it, and often from the police, because you were arrested 17 times.
Yeah, but that were mostly were during pit closures, to be quite honest.
Right, OK.
Never got charged because the media and the government didn't want the women to look martyrs, because that's what we were, and they didn't want that.
And this strike was a chance for women to step forward and support their husbands and the men, the wives and the daughters, the mothers, all getting involved.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, Maggie Thatcher never thought there'd be thousands of iron women. She were only one. We were thousands, and we took her on.
What difference would there have been if the women hadn't been there supporting the men?
I can't answer that one because I don't know.
But it was pivotal, wasn't it? I mean, the fact that you were there and you were at the soup kitchens and there was the campaigning, and you were stepping forward from not just being behind the kitchen sink anymore, but you were actually doing something really different and positive.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'd never been out speaking to a crowd of people in my life before, you know. That were frightening, my knees were knocking, but I got through it. Picket lines, where we got spat on, it was me that were going to get arrested, saying I was going to fist her in the mouth. Not them spitting on me.
And you lost a tooth, didn't you?
Yeah, oh yeah, that were on an old women's picket line. I can't say it on camera as much as I'd love to.
Yeah, don't.
But he thingied me, so I actually wanted to go to the toilet, and they were letting us use this toilet in the club.
Oh dear. Let's bring in Lisa, because you were 10 years old at the time, Lisa. Who have you got with you?
Bruno.
Who's Bruno?
He's a teddy bear that's 40 years old, and he came all the way from Germany. It was donated from, well, many toys were donated all around the world, and they came to the Exeter Miners Welfare Club, and my sister got this one.
Wow. Now, your sister, when she was born, not long after she was born, she was taken to a picket line.
4 weeks old. When she was born from the hospital, my dad and my mum went straight to the picket line, me as well. It touches me. And showed her off to all the gentlemen, and then we came back home with her.
What do you think, looking back 40 years now? I mean, what does all this mean to you?
I can't believe it's 40 years, but it still means a lot to me because we've all become family, not just the family in the house, all the miners became family together and united. It touches my heart.
Thank you very much for telling us your story. Thank you very much indeed. Lara, how do you follow that? I mean, incredible, isn't it?
I don't know. I just loved hearing Aggie and Lisa's stories there. It was wonderful. And that big brown bear as well. Give him a cuddle, will you, Ian? I just want to show you something here, actually. It's the Kellingley Colliery Miners Memorial. And it was moved here from Britain's last remaining deep pit, which closed in 2015. Now, you know, people still come here to remember. And as we've seen already tonight, the scars still run deep from 1984, with many unwilling or unable to forgive and forget. Only this week, the NUM's former president and figurehead, Arthur Scargill, was unrepentant when he joined in the Dodderth March to mark that anniversary.
We predicted that if we didn't stand and fight, we'd be battered. But if we stood and we fought, we would inspire the movement to do something. There's a lesson for all trade union leaders today. Fight like we did, don't give in.
Along with Margaret Thatcher, one of the main players in shutting down the mines was Michael Heseltine. Now, he was in her cabinet some 40 years ago, and he also took up the position as president of the Board of Trade. And that was when he oversaw the loss of some 30,000 jobs in the mining industry. That was in 1992. Now, I managed to catch up with Lord Heseltine in London a little earlier on, and he's turning 91 this month, but he's as sharp as anything, I can tell you that much. He remained defiantly supportive of Mrs Thatcher and her government's decision to take on the NUM.
The issue was not a new one. It was an old one which had undermined the British economy for decades. We had to deal with it, and we had to bring the unions within the law of the land. That was the issue. And there was no doubt in our minds about what we had to do.
When we think about the rule of law, images of the Battle of Orgreave spring to mind. Do you think that the police behaved appropriately on that day?
I think they had little choice. You have to ask what the pickets were doing and what techniques they used and the violence they used to stop other miners who wanted to work from doing so. And who started the process of this violence? It was started by the militancy of Arthur Scargill on the picket lines, and that's where the responsibility starts. So the police were left with the most uncomfortable set of circumstances.
There were 93 people who were arrested that day. Many of those men have not been able to clear their names, and there are calls for a Hillsborough type of inquiry into the police's conduct on that day. Would you support that inquiry?
No, why don't we have an inquiry into the picket lines and the way they behaved? Wouldn't solve anything. People have made up their minds, and it would just be a field day for the lawyers. It would drag out for years, cost a fortune, and would it change anyone's opinion? Not in the least.
Could Margaret Thatcher have compromised with the unions?
I don't think that Arthur Scargill was a man with whom you compromised.
Just one final question, Lord Heseltine. For your grandchildren, how would you describe that year of 1984?
I would describe it in the context of the battle to bring union militancy under the rule of law. That is what democracy is about. That was the final battle, and it was to the great benefit of the country at large, the people at large, and in the end, to many of the communities themselves.
Different view to Lord Heseltine. Their mantra was close a pit, kill a community. Grimethorpe Colliery shut under Lord Heseltine's watch. That was in 1993. And Michael Billington has been back to the village to see the legacy left behind. Michael, the mine may be consigned to history, but its memory certainly lives on, doesn't it?
Yes, that's right, Laura. Every year, hundreds of former miners come here to remember those who lost their lives working down the pit. But this is more than a memorial. It also stands as a monument to the colliery itself, around which this entire community was built. And while its loss is etched on the memories of so many families here, there is also now a new generation born after the mine closed, whose lives are still being shaped by its closure to this day.
Grimethorpe Colliery and all the industry around it were a 4 square mile. The baths, the lamp rooms, and then the shaft that took you down the pit would have been just about there.
From the top of the old slag heaps, former miner Danny Gillespie recalls just how dramatically this landscape has changed since the closure of Grimethorpe Colliery.
It was massive, and what's happened to it? It's flattened. At the end of the day, they destroyed a village.
Given the fact that a lot of people at the time thought it can't survive the closure of the pit, why do you think it's here all these decades on?
Because of the community. Simple the community, the people that live here. I won't live anywhere else. I just want to live here.
This was a village that grew up around the pit, a community built on a support network provided by the coal industry. And so when it came under threat and miners walked out on strike, there were plenty, like Julie Lindley, who dug in and literally kept the home fires burning.
You're welcome. Every day, 7 days a week, on stacks, on coal stacks. There were quite a few of us from Grimethorpe. Used to go with a shovel and a riddle, sacks. And I started off with just a push bike, 2 sacks of coal, pushed it home, and then sometimes police would come and show us off, not in a nice way, but there you go.
Today she volunteers in a warm bank in the village, providing meals free to those who need them, just as she did 4 decades ago.
So I used to do 8 hours on stacks, come home, shower, and then we had a soup kitchen. So then I went down there in soup kitchen, feeding single miners. It was really good.
Funny to think that 40 years later, you're back here feeding people again.
I know, isn't it good that? I love it. Keeps me going as well. Enjoy it.
Soon after the colliery closed in 1993, the European Union called Grimethorpe Britain's poorest village. Despite millions of pounds of investment and the opening of factories and distribution centres around the former pit site, the area still has fewer people in work, more deprived households, and more people suffering ill health than the national average.
The job's not done. Let's not sit here and say, oh, the problems have been solved. There are still significant challenges. So we're not complacent. While we can see huge improvements in Grimethorpe, we know there are still challenges ahead. But I think this community can be very proud that not only did it deal with the strike, did it deal with the pit closures, it's given itself a future as well.
Today, all that's left of Grimethorpe Colliery is its brass band. Its newly formed junior band meets once a week, trying to create opportunities for its youngest generation of players.
I like the social side because you just get to make friends and then you might see them in other places.
What's it like having the opportunity to learn an instrument like this?
Amazing. Honestly, it's amazing.
Everyone that gets a free instrument, they get free tuition.
We don't think that it should just be those that can afford to have lessons that receive lessons. It's really easy for young people to just get into that Grimethorpe is everything, and there's no other opportunities out there, and there's nothing else for me. And if we can just provide some opportunities, then, fantastic.
The pit's gone, but what is a good thing, what is a bad thing? We're living longer. We want to live this long. I'm 80-year-old now. We want to live this long if we was to stop down that pit all that time. So, Maggie Thatcher, did she do us a favour or did she not do us a favour? I've sort of matured now and mellowed, and life goes on. You can't bear a grudge forever and a dreary day.
Danny Gillespie ending Michael Billington's report there, and we'll be returning to Grimethorpe at the end of the programme. I must just also mention that here at the National Coal Mining Museum for England in Wakefield, the special exhibition is going on for a year, and it's called The Longest Year, and it's well worth a look. Now, this place, we've come inside, is where a miner's working day would start. This is the lamp room. You can see hundreds and hundreds of lamps all around us. And of course, when they turned up for work, they didn't know what the day would have in store for them. Could be quite scary. It would be gruesome, hard work, gruelling in fact, and very, very difficult. And you never quite knew whether you were actually going to see daylight again. So I thought I'd give it a try, have a look for myself to see what it's like. And Pete took me down there.
Right, Ian, come on.
Thanks, Pete.
This is an adventure. This is an adventure, yeah. We're off into a deep, dark world now. Mind your head, watch your step, please.
Thank you.
I'm in. Oh. Yeah. You're on top of 140 metres and nothing at the minute. This is it, we're off. Are you ready?
Here we go. So this is a new experience for me, Peter, but for you, this is something you've done many, many, many times over the years. Do you still get excited about it?
Absolutely. When you come onto a cage, you're going into a new world underground. You're going with your friends and colleagues. Somewhat you may perhaps live in the same village as them. At the end of the shift then, which couldn't be anything between 6, 8, 10, 12 hours, then we get back onto the same, we come back to the surface, and that's sort of when the joy and the elation starts. We've done as work, we've done as shift, and now let's go back to surface and meet as families again. So if you just wait all up these doors, please, and then you can follow me. Right, this way, please.
Thank you.
Just go into them air doors, please.
Fantastic, isn't it? Look at this.
Just watch your step, please. It can be a little bit slippy.
My goodness. It is a different world.
When you see a piece of coal on surface, you can think, well, maybe I had a part to play in getting that out of the mine, you know. But coming underground, absolutely loved it. The only days where you think, oh, have I had enough? Should I need to pack it in? Is the dark days when someone gets hurt or worse than that. But every day was an enjoyment. It was tough, it was hard, it wasn't always well paid, but nevertheless, the spirit of the togetherness and the comradeship, you just couldn't buy it anywhere else. So it was a pleasure going to work, but don't get me wrong, it was tough and it was hard work.
Peter, no better way to learn about the history of mining than to actually come down here and experience it at first hand.
Yes, you might not understand what coal is and where it's come from, but if you understand the history of it and how it's sort of progressed through time, how it's changed everybody's life through the Industrial Revolution, so it's had a massive role in sort of the way we live, even though there's no coal mines left in this country. So we have to absolutely keep the museum alive.
Well, thanks to Ian and Pete there. And if you haven't been to the museum and taken the journey underground, well, I would thoroughly recommend it. We heard, of course, in Ian's message of how important it is to remember and celebrate an industry that was the lifeblood of communities in this part of the world for so many years. In a moment, Kerry will be here with the weather, followed by the ITV Evening News. But first, I just want to leave you with the Grimethorpe Colliery Band, keeping that heritage alive with the Miners' Hymn. From all of us at Calendar, a very good night to you.
We wanted to keep our jobs, protect our families and our futures, but ultimately it was a battle of Britain.
Some miners were truncheoned as they tried to break police lines. This was the first of many arrests.
1984, Great Britain.
We helped each other and we tried to do what we could to keep it going.
Everybody had to help one another. If you didn't, you went under. You've got to have that grit.
I've sort of matured now and life goes on. You can't bear a grudge forever and a bloody day.
The pit's gone, but the nice people and the community are still here. Still pulling together after all that time.
Good visibility on the horizon. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hello, very good evening to you. We did improve a little bit throughout today with slightly drier and brighter conditions. This time of year feeling nice when the sunshine does come out, but where we have the mist and low cloud lingering, feeling quite chilly, and that's the case over the next couple of days. Overnight tonight we've got a bit of an easterly developing, and that's just dragging in further cloud and a little bit of moisture overnight tonight. So although many places will be officially dry, there will be some dampness in the air, some mist and low cloud lingering, and therefore frost free, not as chilly as previous nights and previous looking mornings. 6:41 and 5:54 ISON times as we head into Wednesday. Tomorrow disappointingly cloudy, misty and murky to begin. Into the afternoon it will improve from the south to sunnier skies, but with the sunshine also the risk of some showery outbreaks. Temperature wise 9 or 10, and again feeling okay where we get the sunnier spells. Pretty much a rerun as we head into Thursday. Cloudy start, some brightness and then showers, and the showers on Thursday later in the day could be heavy and thundery. Take care.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.